Now let's break down our featured story of the day, and that's the latest from the high priest of Bitcoin, the one and only Max Keiser. He recently made a prediction that he believes the Bitcoin price will soar to $1 million per coin, so I want to share some of his thoughts. He goes on to share, this country, referring obviously to El Salvador, will be debt-free by 2030 with Bitcoin and geothermal Bitcoin mining, and at this current moment, they're setting up shop for the geothermal energy while they introduce other alternatives for, solar and other ways of clean energy to be mining Bitcoin. He also went on to share that countries around the world are beginning to accumulate and mine Bitcoin as the world of fiat money and central banks disintegrate. With the benefit of President Nayib Bukele's new laws, such as making Bitcoin legal tender, we have the ability to lead the world and arguably become the richest country in the world. So shout out to all the people of El Salvador. Keiser has been a very vocal proponent of Bitcoin as a currency, declaring that all fiat currencies are going to zero compared to Bitcoin. Keiser explained that Volcano Energy's market cap will grow to $50 billion, exceeding El Salvador's GDP, which is estimated to be roughly $29 billion. This growth will be powered by the rise of the price of Bitcoin to $1 million per coin, he says. He qualified this prediction as a mathematical certainty. And now for some more great quotes, I recently transcribed the recent interview he did with Swan Bitcoin. Here's what Max Keiser had to share. With Bitcoin, it's kind of the end of price discovery because everything will be priced in Bitcoin eventually. Preach. Everything goes to zero against Bitcoin. And so for someone like myself who has been following this for 40 years, the finance markets, technology, Bitcoin is the holy grail. It is the end all. I would say my compatriot in all of this is Michael Saylor. And when you hear Michael Saylor talk, he talks about the aesthetics of Bitcoin, the beauty of Bitcoin. He speaks about it in a way I think carries the torch from the Max and Stacy Herbert of 2011. He started buying it, I guess, when it was 10,000 or 12,000 or so in the 2020 era. So here we are there from 2011 to 2020. And I think he's kind of carried the torch from 2020 in a lot of ways, introducing Bitcoin to massive pools of capital, including Elon Musk, fam. I'm surprised that more companies haven't followed his lead, giving the upbreak in inflation we have had exactly as Saylor predicted, the melting ice cube as he called it at that time, which is exactly what happened. Well, I guess we can say now we're now in the era where Blackrock and these other major institutions are now looking at Bitcoin. So his work on the institutional level, I guess, is bearing fruit now 3 years later. Facts. I see in the Middle East, they're starting to recognize Bitcoin. So that's a huge pool of capital. I think all of that oil money will find its way into Bitcoin and be a huge catalyst for high prices. It is a natural way for the oil industry to diversify their portfolio because Bitcoin is essentially energy, and the energy eventually gets priced in Bitcoin. And there is a marriage between these two in a big way. So I think it's kind of the answer. I've always been fascinated by price discovery in markets and the architecture of how markets work under the hood. And Bitcoin is such a pristine, perfect money. And I think it's something the humans have been searching for since forever. And now we're seeing it change society on a really fundamental level with the introduction of Bitcoin. A lot of people are freaking out because saying it destroys the status quo, and a lot of people have been waiting for it to come along and had the faith that humanity can be saved. They see Bitcoin in those terms, so you have this split going on, which is very exciting. So it just continues on and on. How could you not be interested in Bitcoin? I think that people who were into it earlier and walked away just never got it from the beginning. Once it's categorized as an asset class, we have nothing to do except position ourselves in this asset class, and we already know it's an asset class, fam, right? Either we're going into a small position or a big position, but we cannot ignore it. We cannot not have a position. Now pay close attention to what he shares here. So even 1% of that multi-hundred trillion dollar funds available moves the needle on Bitcoin, and it moves it up considerably. So if we get into the 5-10% range, then you start to really see it raise ahead to the 7-figure type predictions that people have been making, including myself, because it is an asset class. Preach. And on the flip side, we have what we saw in the gold market, which is the ability to control price discovery and manipulate prices. It's real through the derivatives market. So the price of gold has been lagging inflation for 20 years because the government around the world don't like gold making their fiat money look bad. So they make it easy for huge funds to manipulate the price of gold and to scalp it and continuously skim profits off of gold, which is what they do almost every single day. You can watch it and see it. In fact, it's pretty clear. And they are very good at keeping the price of gold and silver down. There's something like for every ounce of silver, there's probably 50 ounces worth of derivatives floating in various exchanges centers around the world that are used to keep the price of silver down because the governments don't want gold to race ahead to draw capital out of their fiat money scam and into gold. Now with Bitcoin, we have the ability to pull our private keys, which is not really available with gold. So technically, people can take delivery of gold on these exchanges, but there has never been an organized attempt to do so. That's right. We tried to do it a few years ago with Crash JP Morgan, buy gold and silver, because after the 2008 financial crisis, when JP Morgan ended up buying Bear Stearns effectively for nothing, they inherited this huge multi-million short position that Bear Stearns was managing at the behest of presumably the government. The government likes to stay involved. And so I did some calculations and it became clear that if this short position were not covered, the price of silver got to $60 or $70 an ounce, it would bankrupt JP Morgan Chase. So we started this Crash JP Morgan buy silver campaign and we got the price of silver from 15 bucks up to $50. So we got it up to the old Hunt Brothers $50 level, and then the Fed, of course, came in and they changed the laws overnight to make it possible for these banks to have and carry much greater short positions in silver. So they printed up a lot of paper silver derivatives and they stopped the run on their bank and the price went back to $15 or so. And so we've seen what is possible to force capitulation in the silver market. But at the end of the day, because the ability to pull your private keys is not like it is with Bitcoin, I don't think it'll ever succeed. Whereas with Bitcoin, you can pull your private keys. Very powerful words coming from Max Keiser on how the regulators and Wall Street use derivatives, which is classified as financial weapons of mass destruction, according to Warren Buffett, to manipulate the markets. As Max points out, for every ounce of silver, there's 50 ounces worth of derivatives. This is why we don't want futures ETFs for Bitcoin. We need the spot. We need the real deal so that they're holding on to the underlying asset so they can't use it to wreck the investors, as Gary Gensler in the SEC is notorious for. But let's continue with some more rants from Max Keiser as he made some very phenomenal predictions. He also recently shared here in a tweet on August 11th this year, Bitcoin has already and will continue to outperform everything else so spectacularly by 100x or more that anyone holding fiat, stocks, bonds, gold, all the ish coins, property, etc. will literally be impoverished. And he also goes on to share, Bitcoin is designed to be attacked. When the EU says we need to attack the price of Bitcoin, that's music to Bitcoiners' ears because all attacks mean greater hash rate, greater security, and higher prices. Preach. And he continues, it's designed to be attacked. The more you attack it, the higher the price goes. So we welcome the EU attacks and the IMF and Christine Lagarde and the central banks and the Federal Reserve Bank. Please attack me so that the price can go to $100,000, $200,000, $1 million per Bitcoin. Thank you. So there you have it, coming directly from the high priest of BTC.